Ready to go on organizational context. The organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and strategic direction. We'll let you read the rest of it. Hopefully you're following along with your copy of the standard. In a general way, the word shall in here denotes a requirement. And so you have to pay attention to the verb. So you need to provide, in this case, objective evidence of conformity to the shall. So in this case, you're required to determine and monitor something and provide objective evidence that you did so. So this is objective evidence. Objective evidence is something we can all agree on exists. It can be a document, it can be a computer record, and it can be a bucket of something. It can be any of anything that we can all agree on exists. The interpretation of that thing, whatever it is, and whether or not it meets the requirement is up to the auditor. And a lot of times, finding the requirement is a lot more complicated than finding the objective evidence. The auditor is required to be open-minded and seek to understand the evidence through questioning. So the auditor is going to ask you a bunch of questions. Now that brings up the case of the guide. The guide in an ISO audit is very important. That person, whoever that may be, basically takes the organization's side in determining the objective evidence. And it also facilitates the auditor's understanding of what that thing is, whatever that may be. It requires enough knowledge of the process, and it requires enough knowledge of the organization to be able to do a good job of this. Soft skills are also helpful. And it also, hopefully, you have some knowledge of the ISO and auditing requirements, and that is also helpful. External and internal issues are issues that might impact your business, and in most businesses, somebody's already maintaining a kind of a monitoring of all this. Here are some examples of it, and we're all familiar with a lot of these based on the events of the last couple of years. So one question you might ask is, who does planning like this in your business right now? And if the answer is nobody, part of what your job is to try to initiate this as a planning process. So here are some ways to capture these things in your systems. You can put them in the management review notes. You can write yourself a memo. You can do a presentation. You can do a shareholders report. You might be able to get some kind of document from corporate planning. And you might have a PowerPoint presentation around just like this one where you might be able to present that as objective evidence. I actually have a story for you on this topic. I worked for a company not too far from here that was making staph infection test kits. And as part of their business, they're using raw material from the salmon fishing industry. And at some point, they went from an employee workforce of about 15 people to having to close the doors because these things stopped working. And their working theory at the time was that this raw material supply had gotten contaminated with trout somehow. The moral of the story on all of this is that it's in your customer's interest for them to have a strong supplier, i.e., namely you. And one of the reasons they're having you do this is because they want you to look around at what's going on in your work environment and try to be a strong company and try to be able to compensate for anything that could happen. Anyway, that's the end of Clause 4.1. Thanks for watching.